The crafting abode didn't collapse upon itself and didn't boot him out or anything, so he had a good night's rest. It was super silent in there, no soul to bother him. He stretched while yawning and jumped up to his feet. What this place was missing though was a shower, and he didn't think that he could install plumbing. It worked for now though, maybe he could find a lake or a waterfall to wash up later, not like he had any body odor, though he found that a bit odd because even if he did sweat he didn't end up smelling with sweat. Guess it was something about this cultivator body of his. He appeared out in the open in a flash of light, scaring some of the wildlife in the area. Matt chuckled to himself, and while munching on a chicken leg, well, it was more of an unidentified bird leg, but he told himself that it was chicken. He stretched a bit, the sun already up as the crafting room didn't have any natural, so there was no rising sun to wake him up. He tossed his flying sword out again and took flight, going towards the mountain peak. The mountain is huge. It looked a lot smaller on the map, but it just went on and on till the clouds. Guess everything on this continent was bigger than back on Earth. He pushed more spiritual energy into his sword and flew up into the air, ascending upwards while the skill shielded him from the heavy winds and cold air. As he broke through the soft blanket of clouds he could see the mountain peak. To his surprise it was quite green up here. He didn't see any snow around that he expected from a place at this altitude. He looked at the map and then tried to sense the aura of others around here, but it was nice and peaceful. There were a couple of beasts up here, most of the bird variety, but they scattered the moment they felt his overbearing aura as he was scanning them. There was a layer of clouds just below the tip of the mountain he was standing on. The view was just breathtaking. Matt just took a moment to look around the place. There were vegetation and a little spring in the middle. He slowly walked around while the birds flew about. The place felt peaceful. He couldn't feel any dangers around, a perfect spot to spend some time to test his skills and cultivate. He hopped up to the highest point on the mountain top, which wasn't that wide. He had just enough space to sit down in the lotus position on the almost pointy boulder sticking out of the mountain top. He started concentrating. The wind started picking up as he resumed his cultivation. The chi in the area was a lot thicker than what it was back in that forest village, so sucking it up was a lot easier this time around. He sucked up the water like chi into his body, nourishing his meridians and pumping his cultivation up more and more. The storm clouds soon gathered up above him, and the ones that were below the mountain peak looking like a blanket turned dark. The animals around the peak started hiding and running away from the incoming storm. The lightning strikes soon filled the entire peak. You could hear booming sounds of thunder hitting against the human cultivator that remained seated in the lotus position. The electric strikes kept connecting with his body periodically, infusing him with more and more chi. Due to the storm, the cultivation process was a lot faster than before, but it was a lot harder as well. Matt had to focus diligently as to not let the spirit energy run wild in his body and not to overflow. Because if that happened he could suffer a backlash to his cultivation, injure himself or even lose some of his progress. He remained in that one spot, letting the bolt sculpt his body into a better shape. He could feel his core expanding slightly more and more as it took the spiritual power in. He was almost in a trance. This was normal for cultivators, as when they got the ball of cultivation rolling it was hard to stop. That is also the reason why most of them remained hidden from others, doing it in seclusion, not wanting to be disturbed, as a lapse in judgment could be very detrimental to their well-being. He was cultivating at least twice the speed than he was previously, but he didn't stop at just doing that. Matt also had some new skills that he needed to figure out. After he got his fill of absorbing spiritual energy that pushed his cultivation past 50%, he decided to take a break. First came the force field or barrier technique. He clasped his hands, forming a seal as a semi-transparent coating started appearing around him. It looked like a regular circular barrier around a person, but looked a bit more unstable with the lightning energies crackling around it. At this moment some dust got kicked up, and as it came up to the barrier and blocked its approach, crackling in response. He could tell that inside he was safe from harm, but outside the force field would discharge electricity at anything that came in contact with the barrier. He started playing around with this skill, managing to make it bigger and bigger, covering about an area of 10 meters before he started having problems in keeping it together. He could also shrink it and focus in front of himself. This made the barrier thicker in that spot, and it would probably defend against more damage. Matt nodded and moved on to the Storm Dragon skill. He concentrated while waving his hands around in various patterns. This skill couldn't be formed instantly, which would be its weakness. After a moment electricity escaped from his body and shoot above his head. The energy concentrated into one spot and started forming a dragon. It wasn't the Western type of dragon that most people were familiar with. It was the more serpentine-looking one from Eastern stories. The creature looked like a construct of blue and white light as it gave out electricity. it roared about and circled around his body as if going into a defensive position. He could feel some kind of strange mental connection with the creature, he could also see through its eyes as it flew around. He tried giving it some basic orders like go over here, hit that rock and defend this position. It followed all the instructions to a T, but when he ordered it to do the Fortnite dance it looked at him with question marks above its head. I guess not, het. He could actually ride the thing, so it would be an alternative to his sword if he ever lost it. The dragon was big enough for him to ride while having space for more people. This way of traveling was a lot more draining on his spiritual energy though, so it would probably not be a good idea to use it as a regular way of traveling. The last but certainly not the least was the avatar transformation. He took a good breath in before he released the skill. It didn't have any fancy hand movements to activate, he just had to concentrate, but it also had a bit of a charge-up time. He could feel his body giving of spiritual energy, the chi started coating his whole body and expanding outwardly. Growing and growing, he could feel his point of view getting elevated as the technique turned him into a giant made from lightning. The sparks flew everywhere while he looked at his hands and ground below him. Size-wise he was close to 6 meters tall, but he could pump himself up further, but that would drain his energy faster and faster. If he increased his cultivation he reckoned he could sustain a larger form for a longer time. He threw a few punches, his power certainly increasing with this skill. He tried forming a javelin while in this form, which worked as the one he formed was many times larger than his regular one. He could probably take on people on a higher cultivation level than he was with this skill, but he had to be quick as it was quite draining. He tested it out, managing to keep it up without using any other skills for about 10 minutes before his energy dipped below 50%. He would probably have a couple of minutes of real fighting time if he decided to go ham on someone. Guess I should probably use this more as a finisher than the opener, or to give others a scare. He powered down, moved back to cultivating. He wanted to his core formation middle stage before moving on. It would boost his reserves quite a bit and being more powerful was always the best way to go. It took him about half a week to finally pump his cultivation to 100%. His lightning core churned with energy, crackling and expanding as he broke through his aura, filled the surroundings as a lightning bolt directly hit his body. He stood up and tested his new level with a couple of punches and kicks. He felt a lot stronger than before. He could probably take out the corrupted one with one good placed hit if he fought him once more. Going up a level in cultivation was a lot bigger than going up in levels in games. It was quite the big difference indeed. After testing his skills a bit more at the higher cultivation realm, he decided to head to the new town. Matt traveled through the land, zooming around and taking in the sights. The land was quite beautiful and there were many wondrous beasts and sights to see. He even found himself a waterfall to wash up in. Then he tried cultivating under it, but the progress was a lot slower as the water made it more difficult to transform chi to the lightning variant. He thought to himself about his future. He wasn't here for that long and he already almost died due to a wannabe Squidward. The sights were nice and all, but spending most of his life as a couch potato while playing games and being as lazy as possible made it hard for him to change the outlook on his life. He was getting better, but he still had the tendency to be lazy, though there was not much to do here besides crafting, fighting, and cultivating. Well, I should be there in a couple of hours if I keep the speed up. His flying speed also increased with his cultivation, as not only did he have a bigger spiritual energy gas tank, the quality also improved, so he spent less while having more. He didn't see other cultivators flying about on their swords, but that was natural as there weren't that many core formation ones around. A foundation establishment person wasn't able to fly much. But see a couple of flying ships. They looked like regular wooden boats and galleons, but somehow they were able to move in the air as he did on his sword. Maybe he too could make something like that later one? Did the Dao of crafting include shipbuilding? He shrugged and flew ahead. He sometimes wished that the cash store would have electronics in them. He could use his old smartphone or an MP3 player. These long trips had interesting things to see, but otherwise, it was quite boring. And would you know it, he got what he wanted, as when he was passing by, he spotted a caravan. It looked like one of those merchant caravans that you would expect in fantasy settings. The caravan was stopped by the road. It was getting blocked by some group. Matt knew how to hide his aura so that no one below his level could spot him by this point, so he peeked down. All the cultivators were still in the chi condensation level, but they were at a higher level than what the tribe people were, ranging mostly from 5 to 12. There also was one person in the foundation establishment level mixed into the bunch. He was a bit behind the others and was hiding his strength. The leader of the person at the 12th level was from the caravan, and as Matt looked at the name above it, read Lanfei. That was a female name, right? He wasn't sure what was going on and couldn't see all that well from way up here, so he decided to get a bit closer. He was quite the nosy person it seemed, and the boredom was getting to him. As he got closer he noticed that the female cultivator was quite the beauty, and how to put it, she was quite stacked to boot. This, of course, made him use his heightened senses to zoom in on the lovely peaks. The woman had her cleavage exposed and all. She was wearing what looked like traditional Chinese clothes, just with more revealing parts and sticking to her shapely body quite tightly. He snapped out of it and looked at the group opposite them. They had smirks on their faces as they looked at the woman and the people behind them. "This is Cheng clan territory, you need to pay the toll if you want to pass," one of the thugs said while smirking at the busted woman who looked angry. "What's the meaning of this, the Cheng clan? The only toll is by the city gates, everyone knows that. Plus this area belongs to the Zhang clan." Matt perked up at the mention of his so-called clan that he had no idea who was or wasn't a member in. He found himself moving closer and closer as things got even spicier. He was totally not staring at the woman's chest and totally didn't stare as she was talking, which made her ample bosom bounce in a lovely way. The Cheng clan members noticed this too, so they started drooling themselves. "Hehe, the Zhang clan has its hands full in Spirit Spring City, they have no power in Moonlight City anymore." The woman frowned at the people in front of her. If this was true, then they wouldn't be able to get out of this without paying. They could not offend the ruling clan of this city if they ever wanted to do business here. But she didn't like the way these upstarts handled things. The moment they got some measure of power, they extorting money from people. She gave out a sigh and tried to be professional about it, being the caravan's owner and a merchant herself. The sleazy ways of these people weren't anything new to her. "How much?" The men were a bit surprised that the girl didn't complain more, but then grinned at her. They looked at each other and then the man in charge stepped forward and while looking at the woman licked his lips. 100 low-grade spirit stones. The woman opened up her eyes wide and frowned. This was just plain extortion. She wouldn't pay more than 10 at the gate, and this price was 10 times the regular amount. "Why don't you just rob us? Does your clan head even know you are doing this?" The men chuckled to each other while standing. "Well, we'll drop the price to 10, if you give us some special service, girlie." The man licked his lips as he moved forward and looked at the woman like a predator. The people behind the woman started complaining but didn't know if they could offend these people. The Cheng clan might have been an upstart clan, but they did have foundation establishment elders which they couldn't handle on their own. "Preposterous, Lady Fei, let's just leave, we can just head to another city." One of the people from the caravan spoke while glaring at the Cheng clan people. The woman started to think if that would be a good or bad idea. What if they go into the city and they get harassed more? You could never trust those power-hungry upstarts that did whatever they wanted. As she was about to make a decision, one of the men in front of them walked out and she could feel pressure pushing her down. It was a senior cultivator. "Why don't you stay, I insist." The real leader got revealed as the cronies made way for him. The man looked quite old with a wrinkled-up face and beady eyes. He was just in the early stage, but this was enough to make the caravan people tremble in their boots. Now they were afraid. They would have no chance of running if this elder jumped in. They would have to pay the toll, but the problem wasn't that. The clan people had set their sight on their boss. "How about your people gather the spirit stones while we have a nice chat over there?" The old man grinned while poking a bit to the side into the bushes. He turned out to be an old pervert to boot, as he also wanted in on that action. The woman showed quite the disgusting face in response while the people on her side took out their weapons. This could turn bloody any second. "Am I interrupting something?" Suddenly everyone heard an unfamiliar voice. Everyone looked around to the sides but they couldn't see anyone around, but suddenly they looked up and there was one peculiar cultivator hovering right above their heads. He was standing straight up, hands behind his back and his feet planted on an expensive-looking flying sword. Everyone gulped as they realized that the man was a core formation expert, just from the way he was nonchalantly flying above them without a worry in his mind. They also could feel his overbearing aura emanating out that confirmed their concerns. "Ah, you see, we were just trying to collect the toll." The elder from the Cheng clan started speaking while looking upwards while sweating bullets. The clan didn't even have one core formation elder in their midst, the strongest person being at the great circle of foundation establishment, so he could not offend this senior that's staring him down. "Oh, toll? Thought the toll was only collected by the city gate?" "Right. Ah yes, that's right. We must have made a mistake, senior." The Cheng clan members were fast learners and could read the atmosphere. So they quickly gave up on the idea of harassing this caravan and turned tail to run. Matt didn't say much, just looked at the people, backed away till they were gone, then he looked at the people from the caravan that looked surprised and maybe even shocked a bit. A righteous man always has to aid the downtrodden. Even more so if they have, he thought while trying not to stare at the woman's cleavage. While the Honorable Senior Zhang Dong was trying not to look at the woman's ample bosom, the woman in question was thinking about what she should do in this situation. The strange cultivator that appeared looked strong. The aura was there as well. He didn't look all that all, which indicated that he gained his amount of power at a younger age but didn't really reveal your true age, as when you cultivated faster you tended to maintain your youthful appearance even in your older years. This meant that this could be someone within their 30s or some old monster, you could never really tell. She followed the procedure of bowing at the man, and the people behind them did the same. The senior above them didn't talk much but looked down in her direction intensely. She didn't know why he was keeping his gaze at her. Was he like the other people that just left? He didn't seem like it though. She couldn't detect any hostile aura from this man, it felt kind of soothing and reassuring instead. Senior. Matt took his eyes of the female's bust after she looked up at him from the bow in a questioning fashion. He coughed into his hand and looked to the side as he gathered his thoughts while trying to think about something else than the lovely mountain peaks before him. Ah, yes. I was meaning to ask you, does Moonlight City have an auction house? He quickly blurted out what first came to his mind, finally getting a hold of himself. The people stopped bowing, then looked up at the hovering man. He had the looks of a warrior even though part of his face was covered by the robe's hood. Zhang Dong at this time was feeling a bit silly for staring at the lovely lady for that long, hiding his slightly blushing face behind his robe as he turned his face to the side. Yes, there is an auction house in the city, it's called the Red Tiger Auction House, you can't really miss it, it's in the pleasure district of the city. Lan Fei replied quickly while getting to the point, her gaze looking up and a somewhat calm smile on her face as she just wanted to get to the city and relax. Thanks for the info. Matt started feeling a bit awkward. He didn't really have any experience in talking to women all that much, the experience mostly stopping with small talk at work without anything meaningful besides that. He grasped the back of his neck, which was his tic when he was feeling awkward, and just nodded at the people. He didn't really have much to say to these people and didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable as they were giving them those kinds of looks. Well then, see you around. He took off flying towards the city while feeling kind of silly for staring at the bouncy girl. Guess in this kind of situation the hero would strike up a conversation with the beauty and then they would fall in love or something. But he felt like he would be considered some kind of weirdo if he stayed around people that he had no relations with. Lan Fei and the others looked at themselves as the senior that appeared in a flash, vanished just as soon as he came while not doing or saying all that much. They shrugged while looking at each other and then moved their caravan towards the city. There was the problem with that upstart clan, but they thought that they wouldn't try to pull something in the city. There were other clans in there and there were laws. Plus that was probably why they tried to extort them outside. The woman gave the order out to move on while reminiscing about the cultivator in white. He sure was a handsome man, a shame that he left, she thought to herself while smiling. Matt whooshed towards the city, seeing it on the horizon as he wasn't far away. He could see the various oriental-styled buildings and structures. It was surrounded by a big wall. There were 4 big gates coming from each side of the city and he could see a castle structure in there as well, and the streets were looking busy. He remembered that there was a toll to pay before one was let into the city, so being the law-abiding citizen that he slowly descended from his position to what looked like a big line of carts and people that was slowly moving in and out of the city. Damn, that's a big line. He was hovering low enough to catch the attention of the people below him. They all looked up at the cultivator and wondered why he was there and staring at them. Matt didn't know that if you had a certain standing in this world you could cut in line. Being powerful had its perks in this world. The people started whispering while Zhang Dong was feeling awkward once more from getting so much attention, but he was slowly getting used to the attention, but it was slow progress. Hey look, mommy, a man standing on a sword. Is that a cultivator? Why is he just standing there? Does he want something from someone? Hey, doesn't he look kind of nice? A powerful senior has appeared. He was making a commotion that alerted the guards that also looked in the direction, seeing a large man on a sword. They brought up some jade slips that were used for communication by cultivators and alerted the people in the city about an unknown cultivator in white, who was flying on a sword and in front of the west gate to the city. It didn't take long for some cultivators in the later stages of Foundation establishment to appear. They tried measuring the man's power level, but they couldn't get a read on him. It looked that he was stronger than them. Matt was wondering if he should just move into the city instead. The people were making room for him as he tried to approach the line, parting like the Red Sea as they thought that he wanted through. He ended up by the gate soon while the people were still looking at him with curiosity. The experts from the city came out to greet him in front of the gate, greeted him by clasping their hands, which Matt mirrored while hopping down from his sword. "Greetings senior, what brings you to Moonlight City?" they asked while being polite. The cultivator's face twitched a bit as he looked at everyone making a big fuss. He really wasn't used to this rockstar treatment, everyone calling him senior this, senior that. "Ah yes, I heard that you needed to pay the toll to enter the city? I just came to sell some things at the auction house." The city cultivators looked at each other, then back at the cultivator in white, who didn't seem to know that people at his level didn't need to pay anything. "You don't need to pay the toll senior, you can just come into the city, here we will guide you inside." He felt stupid now, and just followed the people that beckoned him inside. There were 3 cultivators and they all looked to be in their 50s, a bit old but not too old. They explained to him that the city requires the common people to pay the entrance fee, but strong people like him or from powerful families didn't have to, it was more to keep the riffraff out. He asked them about the auction house and a place to stay. They saw that this cultivator was a bit quirky, but he felt uninterested in causing a ruckus. They guided him to the best hotel in the city and informed him about some locations in it before parting ways and reporting to other people in the city. He couldn't even tell them his name before they left, but the way the clan people that he was harassing the caravan were speaking, he left that he should wait and get more information before he revealed that he was from the Zhang clan. It supposedly ruled this city as well before something happened, maybe he could get some info on that. He found himself in a big room, it looked quite costly. The door closed behind him while a serving lady took her to leave after guiding him to one of the more costly hotel rooms. "I have to stop doing this, can't keep others just lead me around at their pace, I'm supposed to be some battle-hardened warrior." He wallowed a bit in self-pity as he should learn to say no, at least he had a free room and boarding now, guess it paid off to be a top cultivator. Though I also could learn a thing or two from those people, might have to act like that if a scary cultivator appears with a higher cultivation level. He flopped on the soft bed that is a lot better than the one he had stashed in his storage ring. His next step would be to sell the things he made. He needed to know if he could earn spirit points with crafting, and if he did, how lucrative it would be. He placed all of the items that he wanted to sell on the floor. They included the 9 mortal high-grade weapons as well as the perfect grade 1. He also had the crimson common grade items out. He didn't want to sell the beast cores, for now. He might as well ask for the going price for those later at the store himself. There were various shapes and sizes, warhammers, swords, axes, and even a bow. He wasn't sure how much he could get for them at the moment, but he hoped that he could make some money. If he could, then he would have a nice money and point making option for himself instead of just murdering monsters or other cultivators. The later one he wasn't that keen on doing at all. Zhang Dong had a big window in his hotel room. It was a really tall building and he was occupying one of the topmost floors. He could see down on the bustling streets. There were people coming and going, just doing their thing. He still didn't really know what to do with himself. Should he really go to Spirit Spring City? Would he fit in there? After giving out a big sigh, he flopped back on the king-sized bed and looked at the ceiling, that had some dragon engravings on them. The whole room looked extravagant. He wouldn't be able to afford a luscious room like this in his previous life, but here he could just flex his cultivation muscles and people came on running. He didn't really care about luxurious lifestyles all that much, but he wasn't against it either. He stared at the ceiling for quite some time before moving his lazy ass off the bed. He would also need to do something about not being motivated enough. First came the auction house, then maybe he could gather some info about his so-called downtrodden clan that fled the city for some reason. I bet this place has some relaxing hot springs as well. He kind of started liking the warm spring feeling that this culture had to offer, but he still could go for a normal shower. He paced up his things, looked at his robe in the mirror and decided to head out. It was the middle of the day, so he might tour the city for a bit before the auction house opened. It was in the pleasure district apparently, and it only opened at night for some reason. So he headed out, trying to not stand out, but his clothing was kind of giving him away as it was kind of exquisite. He started thinking that it might be a good idea to get himself a new robe. He could probably make one himself, but he would have to use that dreaded DDR game again. While our hero was trying to not stick out like a sore thumb within the masses, the caravan with the lovely lady that had the peaks that men desired arrived by the gate. They managed to get through it without much trouble and paid the normal toll of 10 low-grade spirit stones. The members were relieved that nothing else happened on the way as they headed into the city to unload their gear. This caravan wasn't a single unit. They hired guards from guilds that were in the city while having some of their own more trusted people with them as well. They were also carrying letters, people, and other various things that they could earn money with. They started unloading their cargo and got busy with work. Their purpose was profit. They just as Zhang Di came here to sell items at the auction and the market. They had some low-grade treasures ranging from common to mortal grades, but mostly on the lower levels. The guards surrounded Lan Fei as they went around unpacking things. she was the leading merchant of the group, so everything went through her. They didn't think anything would happen in the city, but they didn't want to repeat what happened previously. The strange cultivator probably wouldn't help them if they got into trouble once again. This place was a lot safer when the Zhang clan was running things. Merchants weren't getting robbed in broad daylight like this. Shhh, Miss Fei, you shouldn't be talking like that. What if they hear you? The oldest guard said to the woman. He looked to be the oldest from the bunch and was the most trusted soldier from the bunch that this woman had. She belonged to a long line of merchants. She had been the leader of this caravan for a couple of years now and was slowly making a name for herself, as this wasn't the first time she was in this city. She reluctantly nodded at the man that she knew was right. Those type of people she was going against were the petty type, and their reputation was more important to them than the lives of others. Yes, you're right, let us just unpack and transport everything to the auction house, but be careful, the pleasure district is a shady place. We have to watch our backs, she said while wrapping her form in a loose robe. She didn't like it, but she knew that women tended to be singled out around places like that. She would have to be careful. She thought that it was a shame that the world was like this, but this was the reality. The people were rotten and everyone had to fend for themselves. The person that helped them today was the oddball out. She thought about the man once more, but then shook her head. It would be nice to have him around as a bodyguard, but that was a pipe dream. Fei got her head back into it and started going through her inventory, checking if anything got stolen or damaged. She had to inspect everything they wanted to sell before giving it to the buyers. Her good name depended on good quality merchandise. This would take a while, but they still had time before the auction house opened up. So time passed and nothing major happened. She and her men started gathering all of the items that they wanted to sell and headed off to the auction house. Little did they know that after they left, a familiar figure walked out. It was one of the men from the Cheng clan. He was looking in the direction that the people left while grinning. He left after a moment and went to inform some other members that the caravan people were on the move. They had done their research on these people and knew that they didn't have any strong backing. They were just regular merchants. The female's father was in the foundation establishment level, but he was just one man and didn't have many warriors behind him. The Cheng clan had nothing to fear. They wouldn't kill them. They just wanted to show what happened to people that go against their clan. This was the early stage of their clan's rise to power. They were still under a stronger clan that could replace them with another family, so they wanted to prove themselves as well. They were planning some fun after the auction ended. They had their people on the inside, so they would get the girlie and her men into a separate area and give them a good thrashing. Their elder showed interest in the woman before. He wanted to have a good time as well. They had everything planned out. They also knew that the cultivator that came to the rescue of those people wasn't associated with them and entered the city earlier. They thought that they might have overreacted a bit when they first saw him, and it was them that offered him that hotel room as well, though they weren't brave enough to keep tabs on him, as they knew that he would probably know if someone followed him around. While this was happening, Matt was munching on some dumplings. The food was still new to him. He was sitting in some high-class restaurant after he pulled out a gold coin. The people in the establishment looked at him with sparkling eyes and gave him the royal treatment, so he was enjoying some nice food and drinks while watching the city from a window by the table he was sitting in. This kind of life isn't that bad. The meat buns were devoured while he asked for more. The waitress returned with a smile with another plate while Zhang Dong munched away. Having cash on yourself was a nice feeling, as in his previous life he mostly survived on cooking himself some noodles and chicken here and there. Plus the frozen dinners if he didn't feel like doing much, but this food was really good even though he didn't really know what the meat in there was. He burped into his hand while hoping that no one heard, then rubbed his belly that didn't seem to expand that much. Where did all of that food go? Well, I guess no more Mr. Skinny Fat in the future. He paid for the food with the gold coin, but this time around he got the change back. Leave it to a big restaurant to have enough cash. He smiled at the waitress before going out, resulting in blush from her in response. He wasn't quite used to his good looks and didn't really know that you could use that for benefits. Okay, I still have some time to burn before the auction house opens, though I need to get there a bit sooner than the others as the sellers need to present their items for inspection first. He headed out into the city in the form of a tourist, looking left and right while at least trying not to look weird while doing it. People were giving him strange looks here and there. Girls kept turning their heads while the men squinted their eyes at him. He wasn't using his cultivation at this moment, so others didn't regard him as a lofty senior but just as some good-looking guy walking about. He was a bit flattered at the response he was getting from the ladies, but he wasn't here to pick up girls that much but to tour the place instead. He visited a bathhouse as well, paying for the more exclusive one as he kind of got into the big spender mindset. There weren't many people around here at this time. so he could enjoy the large bath on his own. Dipping his large frame into the water after washing up and looking up at the ceiling while relaxing, taking baths instead of showers might have not been such a bad thing after all. He stayed there for about 30 minutes and ended the experience with a nice full glass of milk, a big mustache left on his upper lip in the process. He smiled at some kids that pointed that out and then headed back out into the city. The day looked nice and it would probably be a nice day, he felt it. Of course, he felt it wrong as after stepping out of the bath building he heard some people screaming. There was a dirt road right outside, it was a bit narrow so you had to watch your step as there were horse carriage vehicles going back and forth which didn't leave much space for the pedestrians. They were pulled by various creatures. There were regular looking horses here and there but you could also see things like tigers or huge wolves doing the pulling. A commotion was happening about now as you could see people running to the sides of the buildings and off the road to safety. In the distance you could see two carriages speeding side by side while getting pulled by beasts, one was a big tiger while the other looked like a big hyena. You could see people on those carriages shouting at each other while smiling and smirking, having some bottles in their hands, they were clearly drinking. They appeared a bit away from where Matt is at, he had some time to get a good look at them. They looked like some older teens having some kind of race while drinking booze. The people bolted to the sides while trying not to get run over while others pushed their carts to the side to make way for the rowdy youths behind them. They were probably some young masters doing silky pants stuff as always, guess no place was safe from those Zhang Dong thought to himself as they even had one way back in that tribe he visited. He didn't intend to do anything about it, the people looked like they were going out of the way and he already caused a big commotion when he was entering the city he didn't need people gawking at him even more than they already were. Though fate had different things in store for him as the most common thing happened in this situation. A child at around 4 years of age tripped, fell and started crying while the mother was trying to pull that child and some other kids to the side. Of course, she pushed the two kids to the wall and then started quickly running back to get her last child back that was rolling on the road crying her little heart out. But the woman was just a regular person, so she wasn't very fast so at the moment that she was picking up her fallen offspring the people riding the monster-drawn wheeled vehicles arrived at the spot. She couldn't do much besides grabbing the child and trying to shield her with her whole body, hoping for the best while apologizing for getting them in this predicament. Matt's face fell as he saw everything playing out. Most people turned their faces to the side as they didn't want to see the daughter and mother pair to get smashed to pieces. He almost forgot what sort of world this was. People beneath a certain degree of power were worth less than dirt to those lofty young lords and clan members. They didn't have any problem in running over a mother and child in broad daylight. It's not that the people didn't care but they couldn't do anything in the face of real power. The people on the top tended to remain there and if you didn't have the tendency for slaughter you mostly didn't get far either. He didn't like that, he didn't like that one bit. People looked on in horror as they saw the two beasts run towards the defenseless woman and her child, they knew who the people in the carriages were. They were some Cheng clan members, of course, some from the younger generation. They moved along the city as they owned the place now. It was pretty chaotic. The previous clan that was keeping the peace wasn't like that. But they couldn't do anything about it, they gritted their teeth as they looked at the poor woman. Suddenly something happened, they could feel a huge aura sweep over the place and a strange cultivator appeared right where the woman was standing. He waved his hands in a strange way and a strange translucid shield appeared in front of him and the woman. The shield was sparkling with lightning energy and looked deadly to the touch. The two beasts felt the suppressing defensive ability in front of them but they couldn't stop. The shield wasn't wide so they tried to dodge to the side but they still ended up hitting it. The monsters got shocked and bounced off to the side while the carriages got propelled into Zhang Dong's force field ability. The people on them looked in horror as they slammed into the sparkling wall which was placed at an angle so the carriage flew upwards while spinning and crashed on its top end. They both landed in a similar fashion with the bests getting yanked over as well. The Cheng clan members were scattered on the ground but there were still some of them on the inside of the carriage. No one got really hurt though. All these people were cultivators and they could take some hit and this was just a regular vehicle crash. Two youths climbed out of each carriage along with some other men, they were the main silky pants and had their guards in the carriages along with them. Who dares? I am Cheng Tong, I'm the third son of the Cheng clan head, I will have your head. One of the youths barked out while looking around, his hair and robe in disarray as he got thrown about in his carriage like a rag doll. Yeah, we are from the Cheng clan, we rule this city. The other youth from the other vehicle spoke up, probably also a son from the same family. At this moment a big vein appeared on Matt's forehead, this was the most stereotypical situation he could find himself in, saving people from some stupid snotty silver spoon-fed kid. Oh, you want my head? The two youths and their guards that were helping them up looked in the direction of the voice and could see a mad-looking Zhang Dong. Energy was exuding from his body at this moment and his eyes began to glow. He took one step forward and his whole body was covered by a sheet of lightning energy. The Cheng clan people took a step back as they felt the oppressing aura, they gulped as the lightning-clad cultivator took steps towards them. With each step he kept on growing, after 2 he was 4 meters tall and crackling with energy. 2 more steps and he was 8 meters tall and after a final 1, he was 10. He looked down at the bewildered Cheng clan members that were directly below him now with a frown on his face. So, come on up here and take my head. You could hear a pin drop as everyone was looking at the scene. The Cheng clan members were really tense as they could feel huge cultivation fluctuations from this person. He was in a giant lightning form, looking down at them like ants and they were worried that they would be crushed to death. The Silky Pants squad had personal guards at the foundation establishment level but they knew that this senior was at the core formation stage, plus it wasn't any regular stage, it felt like he was in the late or great circle stage. They used their jade slips to send for backup but they knew that they were in deep shit as they didn't even have anyone in the core formation stage in their clan. The Patriarch was a great circle of foundation establishment. Honorable Senior, please appease your anger. They were just kids from the junior generation, they didn't mean anything bad. The guards of the young masters moved in trying to defuse the situation, clasping their hands and bowing back and forth while trying to get the young brats that caused this mess to apologize. Cheng Tong wasn't that stupid, even though you might think otherwise. He knew well that he would be royally fucked if this cultivator decided to give them a beating and his parents wouldn't be able to do anything. Even if they asked a stronger clan for help they probably would decline as well. So he dropped down to his knees and started apologizing as well. Senior, forgive this silly junior, I didn't realize that you were passing the street. Forgive my lapse of judgment. Matt looked down at the kowtowing bunch getting even more mad as these people were quick to submit to a higher power while ignoring anyone below them and treating them like dirt. He made his best haughty cultivator impression and snorted loudly, his sighs amplifying the effect as the Cheng people trembled in their boots. I'm not the one you are supposed to apologize. Apologize to them. Zhang Di turned to the side, his big frame having an increased weight to it as well which made his feet thump against the ground. Behind him was the child and mother duo, still trembling in the same spot not really knowing what was happening. His large finger pointed to the trembling couple that looked up at the lightning-infused avatar form that the cultivator was in, which made her almost pass out on the spot. If I didn't step in you would have crushed this poor mother and her child, do you have no respect for life at all? They were making a huge scene in the large city, the Cheng clan lord was on his way as well as he got notified about the fiasco that one of his sons had created, he just wanted to give that no good son of his a beating. By the time he got there, he could see his offspring bowing his head to some woman holding her child that looked bewildered, to say the least. The problem wasn't that though. It was the 10-meter-tall lightning giant standing next to that with his hands crossed over his chest in an intimidating fashion while looking at his son. He didn't know what was going on but he knew about the crash that his son had caused. He appeared in the street and tried to get Zhang Dong's attention. Greetings Honorable Senior, I apologize for my son's behavior, please appease your anger. Matt looked at the man that appeared, he looked to be in his 50s and was a bit on the chubby side. He gave him a glare which made the Cheng clan patriarch shiver as he felt the other cultivator's overpowering presence wash over him. You should teach your kid how to behave in public if you are in a leadership position. He didn't want to be making a scene but these people started to piss him off with their outdated mindset. He started shrinking as he went back to his regular appearance, the mother gave him a big bow before moving back to where her other children were and backed away. She was just glad that she was alive and that her children didn't need to live without a mother. The Cheng clan members started gathering together as the stronger elders came on over, they didn't know if they would have to fight this person or not but he seemed to have calmed down for now. Thank you for being so magnanimous Senior, I'll be sure to discipline my son and his friends. Also, I'm the city lord so if you have anything you want you only need to ask. Matt looked at the man that was clasping his hands together while hunched over a bit, he looked like a sleazy merchant more than a clan leader at the moment. He wanted to be done with the lot and just harumphed like a proper mad expert and removed himself from the vicinity while the Cheng clan members looked at him with fear. After he was gone people started whispering while the Cheng patriarch showed an angry expression. He gave his son a thwack on the head while barking out at the people around. What are you lot looking at, be gone. He released his cultivation making the people disperse in fear. Then he told his people to gather all they could find about this unknown cultivator, he had to know if he came from some big sect or clan, or if he was some solo cultivator instead. You idiot, I told you to do your stupid stunts where people can't see you, why did you have to do this stupid thing in public? He hit his son one more time, a big lump appeared on his head, he then told him to go back home and not come back until all of this blew over. This strange senior had some weird thing about protecting other people. He didn't get the info about his clan members collecting toll outside the city as they did that stuff on their own, otherwise, he would have probably forbidden them to go through with what they were now planning. He ordered everyone to conduct themselves with care around the cultivator dressed in white and then left. At this time Matt was in a secluded alley grasping his chest as his heart was pounding a bit. He managed to stay composed while showing off his cultivation, but he still wasn't used to acting like that. Well, at least I didn't pussy out totally this time around, think I'm making progress, but still I don't think this will fix the problem. He knew that this wouldn't really fix the problem in the city, he knew that if he wanted them to listen he would need to force them to do it. But he wasn't ready to go on a rampage in this city, so the most he could do was to intimidate the people under the guise of an irritated senior cultivator. He gave out a sigh and then moved out of the alley. He moved towards the auction house in the pleasure district while it was getting late in the day, hoping that he could get past that without any problems popping out. Knowing my luck I'll run into some slave princess that will want me to save her country or something. He hurried up taking big strides and after some time arrived in the district. There were many colorful buildings in this place. There were restaurants, theaters, and casinos, but also other more raunchy places. This was kind of where the seedy people like to hang out and make money. He could see some food stands and some ladies in provocative outfits standing around trying to invite customers to their establishments. One even tried to invite him in as well, but after he gave her his deadpan look she backed away. Our cultivator had no courage at all to go into one of these places at all, even though he kind of wanted to, but he found himself frozen while looking at one of the establishments. No. I have to be strong, a gentleman doesn't need to use those sorts of places. I should go to that auction house and sell those items, then just go to bed, starting to feel tired, He strode off to the auction house, passing many people before arriving in front of a big building that had a big red tiger above the entrance. This must be the one that the busty cultivator lady was talking about, this made him recall those massive pillows that she had. Okay, focus, selling first. He shook his head and moved up to the entrance where he got stopped by some guards. They asked him about the reason he was here. They told him where he should go if he wanted to sell after letting him come inside. He stepped up to a lady behind a counter and told her that he intended to sell some weapons and that he heard that you had to give the weapons up for inspection. Ah yes, sir, what kind of weapons are they? The woman asked while fixing her glasses a bit. She looked like the librarian type. Ah yes, some perfect grade common weapons and some high grade mortal weapons, plus one perfect grade mortal weapon. The woman didn't react when he mentioned the common weapons, but she perked up after he mentioned the high grade weapons, even more after he said that he even had a perfect grade 1. Also I have a core formation beast core, could I get it appraised? Not sure if I want to sell it. The woman opened her eyes wide and stood up. She bowed to Matt while telling him that she needed to get a more senior clerk and appraiser. After a few minutes, he was led to a room in the back to get his items checked. The people gave him thumbs up on all the weapons, their eyes sparkling a bit at the high grade and perfect grade mortal weapons that were a weapon that a Foundation establishment cultivator could use well. Matt then brought up the tennis ball-sized core that gave off a faint eerie light and set it on the table. The appraiser was an old man with a monocle that moved in close and started examining the item. This is indeed a core formation beast core, where did you find this? The man asked while looking at it. Find it? Oh, I just slew a core formation beast and that's what was left from it. The appraiser was a bit astonished at the cultivator's words, but if he beat the beast that he had to be quite strong. You should be able to get about 1000 low-tier spirit stones for this core, or 1 middle-tier spirit stone. He took the orb back from the old-looking man and placed it back into his storage room. The appraiser squinted his eyes as he saw that. He could tell that the cultivator used a storage ring. He did some mental calculations and counted that the core would give him about 10k points if he traded it for spirit stones. Would it give him more if he absorbed it instead of the spirit stones? He wasn't so sure about that. The two people inside the room looked at the man that made the core vanish and figured that they should probably alert the auction house owner. If this person can really beat a beast at the core formation stage, it would put him at the top end of experts in this city, that might have not even had one present in it at the moment. Ah senior, let us take care of your items for you, also we can offer you a booth to watch how the auction is going if you so wish. Sure, a booth would be nice. I also have a question. Do you perhaps have something that writes down the going prices for various weapons and items? Ah, and do you have prices for resources like metals? Matt asked. He wanted to know the going rates for the things he could sell along with the resources. He wished to calculate if it would be better to buy crafting resources from the people instead of doing it in the cash shop where he needed to spend the spirit points. He wasn't sure if the auction had any of those around or if they would even hand him something like that. The female clerk and the appraiser looked at each other. Those were trade secrets that they had, but they just couldn't hand over the going prices for items that they are selling, as that would probably lower the profit margin if people knew the exact price a given item was worth. We'll have to ask the owner about that. We're not in the position if giving those pieces of information away, senior. Sure, go ahead, I'll just wait in that booth. Don't really have anything to do at the moment either. He nodded while the lady guided him to his VIP booth that would let him see down into the auction house. The auction house looked a bit like an old Timmy theater, with these booths being elevated over the chairs and stage. They had red drapes and comfy chairs. He was even brought something to drink, which was wine. He gave it a sip. It was quite tasty, so he drank the whole glass quite fast while looking down below at the gathering people. Well, I guess they need to gather all those items together. That might take some time. About at this time, the appraiser was talking with the auction house owner, which was an older cultivator lady. She looked like a nice grandma on the first look, but she had a glint in her eye. She listened to the worker who recapped the appearance of the person that brought in the high-quality good that was the core formation beast core. So, did he look like someone we should be cautious of? Could you get a read on his cultivation level? She asked her worker. No, Madam Wang, I couldn't detect any cultivation fluctuations. He must be quite powerful to be able to hide his aura so well, or he could have a treasure on him. He looks like a fairly well-off master. The robes that he was wearing are fit for a core formation expert. Also, he had a high-grade storage ring as well, not one of those knockoff ones that have barely any space to store a sword in them. The woman rubbed her chin while leaning back in her chair. They were in her office and there was a big double-sided glass window behind her. She could see the auction house and all the people below. She glanced at the spot Matt was sitting in and saw the good-looking cultivator that was gulping down the free wine they offered to their customers. The moment she looked at him, he could sense that someone was looking at him. There was a big tinted window there. He could kind of tell that there was someone behind there, thanks to his heightened senses. Madame Wang felt the gaze of the man on her. Their eyes met. He didn't show much of expression and was just looking, but she felt cold sweat run down her back. The man was able to notice that she was looking at him. She had various levels of magic treasures blocking the view inside the room, and no one should be able to know that she was in here. Also, while Zhang Dong was focusing on the old lady, he gave off a hint of his real cultivation base. She turned around and looked at her appraiser that was wondering if something was wrong. The woman looked pale now. Give the senior what he wants, don't offend him. The man nodded while being slightly perplexed, but he wasn't one to ask questions. He got out and gathered the jade slips that had the numbers of the items that were sold there. There had even compiled them to show an average price if he was interested in them, along with items that cultivators used for pill making, crafting like metals and other various things. He handed it to a waitress lady to deliver to the cultivator. They should have asked him about his name, as he didn't introduce himself, he thought. Matt stopped staring at the auction house glass panel, moving his head to the side to focus his gaze on the people in the auction house. After a moment he got the jade slip with the information. The serving lady bowed at him before stepping out, letting him examine the jade slip in question. Asterisko, it's a jade slip. Cultivators use those for storing information or as phones, if I remember correctly. I'm supposed to put my spiritual energy into it to get the information out. Let's see, asterisk. Matt concentrated and his spiritual energy entered the jade scroll-looking item. The databank of the sold items quickly rushed into his head as he did that, giving him a little scare. It was a bit different than the thing the system did with the information injection. The information was there, but it didn't force its way into his brain. He could slowly digest it bit by bit. Guess that was a plus and minus to that, as it wasn't painful but slower. For the time being, he decided to look at the prices in there and compare them to the store prices to see if he could make a profit later on. He still had some time, but people were gathering in the auction house and more seats were getting filled up. First, he looked at the mortal-grade weapons. He found out that he would probably lose out if he ever tried making low-grade or middle-grade weapons while buying resources in the store. Maybe break even with the middle-grade ones, but the rewards varied depending on how many people were buying. The high-grade ones would give him an up to a 50% profit. So if he spent 1000 SP to make one high-grade item, he would earn up to about 150 spirit stones that would net him about 1500 SP in return. One spirit stone didn't always give him 10 SP in return, the give back varied as well. Then came the perfect weapons, those would give him the biggest profit margin, something between 300 to 600 spirit stones, but he needed to use beast cores for those. If he subtracted the core cost, then he would gain about 2k spirit points from those and 500 spirit points from the high grade ones. So I can profit, but I guess hunting beasts might be a bit faster. I gain a lot more for foundation establishment beasts, plus the cores will be free then. But still a good way to earn something on the side. I wonder if I make too many weapons, if I'll destroy the balance on the market and the prices will go down. Maybe I shouldn't overdo that. I could also do it wholesale or trade with some clans that have a lot of spirit stones. Time passed while Zhang Dong was doing quick mental maths with the jade slip in hand. The auction was about to start and the night was coming. The city lit up with various colored lights. Nighttime came and the pleasure district got busy. For some people this was the real start of the day. While Matt was up alone in his VIP room, trying to math away while scanning the jade slip, the auction was about to start. The seats were quickly getting filled out, but not like there wasn't enough space for everyone. There were not super rare treasures coming in, so it would just be a normal day like the rest for the people inside. Zhang Dong stopped calculating his potential gains and perked up. He looked down at the people sitting down. They all were in robes and were all wearing those oriental-style robes. Though their appearance didn't fit the culture, as there were various types of people around if you compared them to earthlings. Black, white, they all kind of mixed together a bit. Guess this world was very racially mixed. He didn't know if all countries were like this, or if this empire was a rarity. The people also had various hair and eye colors, with colors like purple and even green here and there, giving everyone a more fantasy-like appearance. He also noticed someone familiar and jiggly sitting in one of the chairs of the auction house. It was the woman that he saved just before arriving in this city. He remembered that they did indeed have a caravan, so they probably were coming to this city to trade and auction their items. He coughed into his hand and moved back into his room a bit, not really wanting to stare too much as he already did. I got to get used to women too. Why do they have to be so bouncy? He gulped while leaning back in his chair and taking another sip from his wine. His focus then turned to the stage where another lovely lady appeared. She had an hourglass figure and you could see her long legs sticking out from her blue dress. I am your humble servant Fan Are You. I welcome you all to the Red Tiger Auction House, fellow deists. The rules are the same as always, the highest bidder wins. She clasped her hands and gave out a little bow and also a wink to the audience, probably making some of the men's ears flutter in response. After she clasped her hands, the curtain on the stage got raised and you could see a pedestal with an item on it. It looked to be some types of pills that were in a small bottle. The first item is a bottle with 10 chi replenishing pills, suited for cultivators of the chi condensation stage. Let me remind you that every item in the auction house can only be traded with the use of spirit stones. The bidding started as some people started raising their hands. The bottle didn't go for much as it was just for the chi condensation stage cultivators. He could see people raising their hands in the air and shouting out the prices out loudly. This was the first time he had been at an auction house, so it was a new fascinating experience. Going once, going twice, going thrice. Sold. Fellow deist in the blue robe, please behind the stage with the agreed amount of spirit stones to receive your item, or you can wait till the auction is over to do so as well. The lady said while the item was removed another one was placed in its stead. It took some time for the bidders to examine the item. The lady also described what it did and tired giving a short explanation to up its sell value. The auction house did earn a small percentage from selling the items, so it was in their best interest to have them sold. The items were sold in sequence, from the lowest grade to the highest grade. You could even see some people coming in later as they weren't interested in the cheap stuff. Finally, the time to sell his Crimson Perfect Grade common items came and they were laid out on the pedestal. These are all common perfect grade weapons. They have all been strengthened by beast cores and are suited for cultivators of the fire attribute. Matt perked up at the explanation as he knew that the cores added some attributes, but he wasn't quite sure what they changed in the weapons, and now he knew. He kind of randomly added cores while crafting to see if something worked or not. He'd have to examine the things he made more throughout the next time around or just write down the effects by trial and error. He also brought out a dagger that he previously created, but his appraisal skill only told him that it was a high-grade dagger. There was something about the appraisal skill being an evolving type, so after checking that he kind of hit his head, he could spend his points to upgrade the skill. Maybe if he increased it enough he could see more stats on the items. He would remember to check this out the next time he crafted something, as he didn't want to do it around here just yet. The spear, two-handed hammer, greatsword, axe, and a Jian sword that he made didn't sell for much. He got about 20 spirit stones for the 5, so for a pop, but they were kind of easy to make and the resources were just regular metals and chi condensation cores, but he would have to make big amounts of those while spending the exact time creating mortal weapons instead. After those items were sold to someone, they started bringing out items fitting for Foundation establishment cultivators. The items he made were all high grade, so they would probably only come out at the end. So more time passed while Zhang Dong looked out from his booth at the auction house. He didn't want to buy anything as he didn't know what was useful or not. The items ranged from beast cores, weapons to just regular looking plants, but they were called mystical herbs. Finally, after an hour had passed, one of his high-grade weapons appeared out in the open. The cultivators looked at it with greedy eyes as high-grade weapons were quite popular among the Foundation establishment deists. He rubbed his chin and looked down as the people started raising their hands and the bidding wars started. The first weapon was a nice sharp-looking spear. 80 spirit stones. 100 spirit stones. 140 spirit stones. 145. Sold for 145 spirit stones to the deist in the green robe. The weapons appeared one after another in all the bidding kind of ranges from 120 to 150 spirit stones. The least popular weapon was the bow, maybe because it didn't come with any arrows, and it sold for 120 spirit stones. He still counted it up, 9 weapons, the gains 120 to 150, so that would put it at 1080 to 1350 spirit stones. So he lost 1000 points for the resources and sold it for 120 to 150 spirit stones. He would gain 200 to 500 points for the items, which was good or not. He did gain spirit points for just playing a game, it was worth it, but he should make weapons that were more popular. Afterward, the perfect graded weapon appeared. It was a silvery looking spear. He made it with the monster rabbit's core and thought a spear would fit the core as the rabbit used a horn to penetrate people. This is a fine perfect grade spear. It has enhanced penetrating power and works well with earth chi. The bidding started, but it was much higher as they started out at 250 spirit stones right from the start, which was already a 100 more than for what he sold his best high-grade weapon. The rowdy deists shouted out numbers after numbers and the price ended at 550 spirit stones. Which would net him quite a bit for just one item, considering the manufacturing cost. He would have to check the core prices to see how much he would lose if he bought a core from the cash store. Some other items came out, but nothing above the Foundation establishment level. He just waited around looking at the stuff that got sold, wondering if he should invest in some recovery items after he gets his spirit stones. He would gain something around 9 or 8,000 points if he converted everything to spirit stones, which wasn't that bad as a start. Not bad. I will have to check out what I need for crafting and see if I can buy it around town. Maybe I can earn more like that. Though the process of making the weapons then going to the auction house himself was a bit tedious. If he compared it to flying around the forest and trying to find monsters to hunt, it might be a bit better. But he could also use the monster parts for crafting as well, so hunting is also handy. For the time being, he decided to head out and get his stones, then head back to his hotel and rest for the night. The people were leaving as well and he couldn't see the woman from earlier around. They all must have gone to pick up their money as well. 15 minutes earlier. Lan Fei looked on as the last item that she brought out was sold. She also was part of the bidding wars, getting a couple of items that she thought she could sell for more in another city further along. She knew the amount that she could spend and wasn't wealthy enough to go for the high-grade items, so that was more or less it for her in here. She didn't really care about the high-grade weapons that were brought out and were getting bid on now. Okay, guess it's time to gather up the merchandise and leave this city. I'm having a bad feeling about this place. She thought to herself. There was also apparently some commotion on the streets with some cultivators offending some big shot. It was apparently the Cheng clan, which made the woman feel a bit better, though apparently he didn't really trash any of them too much, just some young masters getting a schooling and nothing much besides that. Guess if you got power you don't really care about the little people beneath you that much. She had 2 warriors on each side where she was sitting. She gave them a signal to move out. It was time to get the money and the items and then return to the caravan. They would stay the night and then go early in the morning. There was no reason to remain here, plus the clan in here was kind of sketchy. She didn't want to end up with having to bribe them and lose most or all of their profit. Okay men, time to head out, let's wrap this up. Yes, Lady Fei. Both of the men nodded and got out of their seats. They remained a step behind the lovely lady while keeping guard. They eyed the other patrons menacingly as they knew that their lady tended to attract men a bit much. But she also was quite good at mediating and talking her way out of situations. Most people were more or less reasonable. But there also were people like the men they met today before the city. Those were hard to reason with as they were drunk on newly gained power. They exited the main auction hall, people were still going in and out of it. They walked over to one of the workers and gave their information so that they could get their items and spirit stones. The auction house gave special numbered tokens to the sellers and buyers to identify everything later. The worker took out a jade slip and searched for the number, his eye twitching a bit as there was something else in the jade slip that looked unusual. It had something to do with you-know-what clan. Miss Lan Fei, is it? He asked while the woman nodded and confirmed her identity. He kind of knew that this wasn't anything good. It said that if any of the workers in the auction house come across Lan Fei, they should guide her to a certain area in the back of the building without asking any questions. Plus, anyone not following this order would be severely punished if they ever found out that they ignored it. Ah yes, this way please, I'll guide you. They didn't see much out of the ordinary as they were guided to the back. This wasn't the first time that the people were in this particular auction house, so as they walked they noticed that they weren't being led to the usual room. It was further in the back where the auction house invited the more important guests. This was a red flag, but maybe there wasn't space in the regular rooms? Did someone important want to make a lucrative deal with them? They didn't know, but Lan Fei looked at her men and nodded, making a decision to take the risk. They could see some guards placed along the way, but that was normal. An auction house had to have protection. They walked into a dimly lit room and there was someone sitting with the back to them. The person that guided them inside quickly made his way out as he didn't want to stay here any longer than he had to. I have guided the guest in, I'll take my leave now. The woman and the guards looked behind them as the door was shut and two people stood by it now. The light was turned on and the person that was looking like a James Bond villain turned around to reveal himself. It was, of course, the previous Foundation establishment elder that tried to extort them and his cronies. He smirked while more people from the Cheng clan came out. They quickly grabbed the two accompanying warriors that Lan Fei came with and pulled them away while they were thrashing about. Well, if it isn't the lovely caravan owner, I'm glad that we could see each other again. He said while grinning side to side in his chair. What's the meaning of this? The auction house is supposed to be a neutral area, why are you causing trouble? Do you think Madame Wang will just take this? She has connections as well. The Cheng clan is overstepping their boundaries. The woman shouted at the man while backing away, but her men were getting restrained and the door was blocked off by some Cheng clan members. Madame Wang? That old crow? She doesn't need to know anything. I made arrangements so that we wouldn't be interrupted. Plus, why would that old crow even lift a finger to defend some random merchant lass? If the news doesn't come out, she won't do a thing. He he he. This place is sealed and soundproof. I pulled some strings to get you here. No one will bother us. This is a special room. Only big shots can come in here. You should be honored that I spent so many resources to arrange this. The man licked his lips while standing up, his aura radiating in the room as it forced the woman down to her knees from the increased pressure. Why are you doing this? She asked while an angry look in her eyes. She didn't show fear as she knew that would probably be something that this perverted old man would get off on. Why am I doing this? Because of you. I lost face due to that weird cultivator, made me look weak and pathetic. No one can embarrass members of the Cheng clan. He said while moving closer and closer, his hand moving to grasp the woman's chin and forcing her to look up to him. So, you're too afraid to confront that senior, so you've picked me instead, how pathetic. She replied while spitting right in the elder man's face, the man getting surprised as the spit landed on his cheek. His face turned red and he delivered a slap to Lan Fei's face, making her bleed and fall down to the floor. You damn slut! After I'm through with you, even your own mother won't recognize you. He grasped her long hair that was in a ponytail and pulled her towards a bed that was in the VIP room. This room was made for many things and sexual ones were included. The elderly cultivator was mad, his eyes red with anger after getting spit on. He planned to have his way with this woman, then to order his men to do the same while her guards would get beaten to an inch of their life. Then he would leave a permanent scar of the woman's face so that she remembers this day before tossing her out bruised and bloodied as a reminder to not offend the Cheng clan. Lan Fei was trying to trash about, but the stronger cultivator was using some strange technique to sap away her vitality. She couldn't move well, her cheek hurt due to the hard slap. She still showed a look of defiance that made the man in front of her even madder, but she didn't want to show weakness in front of a bastard like this. She could see the man going to his robe to remove his pants while grinning in a devilish way. She started cursing inwardly. This is how things in this world worked. The woman knew how it was, but she still felt indignant about it. While the Cheng clan members were grinning side to side and stomping on the woman's guards ready to see a good show, something happened. The door that was supposed to be locked suddenly was flung open and they could see one of the people that was supposed to be guarding it on the other side get thrown inside the room and landed flat up against the wall, out called and with shattered teeth. Then they saw a person walk in, their eyes going wide as they could identify this person. Oh, they remembered him all right, it was the cultivator that screwed up their previous extortion attempt, and now he was standing there in the doorway, looking awfully mad while giving them the stare down. The auction was over and Matt stood up from his seat. No one dared to enter his room, fearing that a powerful cultivator could go apeshit if he got disturbed. They placed a nice lady at the entrance to the booth to serve him drinks or anything that he wanted, but Zhang Dong didn't really notice her as he was focusing on his calculations and looking how the auction went. He only stood up right at the end and spotted the woman there, giving her an awkward look. "Oh right, where can I get my spirit stone? I want to cash out," he asked while talking as if this was some kind of casino and he had won some cash. The woman nodded and guided him through the noisy auction house. People were everywhere still picking up their items and spirit stones that they earned, so a lot of workers were rushing about, not wanting to keep the cultivators waiting. Matt moved slowly through the crowd, but as people spotted him they started whispering. He made a scene while coming to the city, and even a bigger one when he crushed the young master's carriage in the racing accident. Word of mouth traveled fast. Information about a strong cultivator that was easy to anger spread through the city like wildfire. Though he was easy to anger, he apparently was quite mild in dishing out punishment, as he let the Silky Pants and his friends go, along with the Cheng clan that were a part of it. They didn't know if he feared the clan or if he just didn't bother with weaklings. This world was ruled by the size of your fist, so it wouldn't be odd if a strong cultivator waltzed in here and crushed that clan that let their children be so overbearing one of these days. Though there also was a reason that the Cheng clan wasn't that afraid of getting retaliated against. They had their backing, which came from other large organizations. So some people assumed that the strong cultivator didn't want to tussle with the real powers in the back that could come back to bite him in the butt later on, which was a smart idea. ZD turned to the side as he noticed that people were talking and looking at him in a strange way. The moment he did that, the cultivators whistled with hands behind their back and pretended that they were looking at something else. One person even evaded his gaze and started looking at the ceiling. Asterisk man, they sure are afraid of me. Do I look like some psycho or something? Asterisk. He still wasn't that long in this world, but by what he experienced in the village back in the forest, he knew that people tended to be tense around people like him. At least they didn't attack him or bother him too much. Thanks to that, there were good and bad things about his newfound fame. He followed the servant lady into the back. The corridor started looking more and more high class the further he got. Guess he was really receiving the VIP treatment, which made him chuckle on the inside a bit. Matt didn't think that he would be put in the shoes of an elite, but here he was. The lady bowed and opened a certain room for him, but before he entered he noticed some people standing in front of another room that wasn't that far away from his own. He could swear that he knew one of those guards, but he shrugged and entered back into the room that the girl guided him. There was a dandy-looking man in there. If he didn't know better he would have called him Alfred or something. The mustached man brought out a bag filled with spirit stones. They were small, but he did earn quite a bit with his weapons, so it was nice and chubby. 1,850 low-grade spirit stones, all accounted for. Would you like to count them yourself, fellow deist? Matt grasped the sack with the stones in and looked at it. He didn't feel like counting, and he really didn't think that the people in here would dare to rip him off. No, it's fine, I trust your auction house. Oh right, I'll return this to you. He placed the jade slip that he got with the going rates of items and placed it on the desk by what the man was standing at. The man took the slip away and pocketed it. Thank you, sir. I hope you'll come and do business with us again. The Red Tiger Auction House always welcomes new business partners. Matt decided not to ask about further business just yet. He also wanted to check Spirit Spring City's auction house and market. Maybe he could get a better deal there. He thought that it was about time to leave, so he bade the man farewell and started walking out. As he was outside he took a look at the guard once more, and then it hit him. It was that guy that was bothering those caravan people. He squinted his eyes wondering what those people were up to. He then thought about that busted woman. She was in the auction house as well. They couldn't have. Zhang Dong moved towards the Cheng clan member in question while the gentleman-looking person behind him frowned. He didn't like the way this was looking. He whispered something to the lady that guided Matt here, and she took off running somewhere while he himself remained to monitor the situation. The Cheng clan member noticed the cultivator walking towards him and he instantly knew who he was. The people that were here weren't around when he was making a scene in the city road, so they didn't know he was here. They were busy with pulling strings to set this up at the auction house and didn't bother to ask for current news. The large man was now standing right in front of him and looking down at him. The cultivator glanced down at him and then looked at the door for a couple of seconds. While he was looking at the door his facial expression started changing. Matt was focusing his senses inside the room. it had some treasures that could block others from peeking inside, but that was for people below the core formation level. He got quite good at sensing the flow of spiritual energy during his cultivation. The lightning chi arts were one of the most difficult techniques that a cultivator could train. So it let him peek inside, and he didn't like the thing he could see one bit. Before the guard could shout out for help, he got his head grasped by the large cultivator. Matt grabbed his whole jaw below the nose and lifted him upwards with one hand. The man squirmed around while grasping the larger cultivator's muscular forearm, but he couldn't budge it 1 millimeter. Zhang Dong delivered a kick to the door that blasted it open. He then threw the man inside before walking in. The Cheng clan guard hit the wall on the opposite end of the room and slid down, bloody nose and out cold. The people inside were greeted by the appearance of the cultivator that they met in the morning. He looked quite pissed and was mostly looking in the direction of the Foundation establishment elder that was pulling his pants down at the very moment. "What the hell are you bastards doing?" he shouted out. His aura filled the room, lightning shooting out from his body as it made the area they were in tremble. The people inside the room started going down to their knees as the oppressive aura pushed them down. Matt had enough control of his aura attack by now, that he could target the Cheng clan bastards while leaving the woman and her guards with no pressure to fight against. The woman felt the pressure that the elder was giving out vanish, and she could move up from the bed. She recognized the person that barged in the room. It was that strange senior that previously gave them a hand, and it looked like he was here to save them again. "Senior, show mercy, we didn't know," the rapist elder said while being squished on the ground and trembling. He was getting most of the aura attack from the group. "Didn't know what? To not rape people? The hell are you even talking about?" The elder assumed that this woman was probably this man's, or at the least he fancied her in some way. The idea of him just being a decent person and just coming to help without wanting anything in return didn't cross his mind. Lan Fei and her men were a bit surprised, but the sudden help as well. The woman helped her men up that had taken some damage from stomping, but they were mostly all right. Matt was thinking about what he should do. He was angry after seeing the attempted rape. Should he punish the man? But if so, how should he punish him? He didn't feel like an authority figure, but he wasn't stupid. He knew that if he brought the man to the authorities of this city, they would probably let him go with no punishment. They would probably not even punish him for the rape, but for the fact that he offended someone stronger than the clan could handle. But he wasn't a ruthless cultivator. He couldn't just kill him and be done with it either. He came to a decision that was somewhere in the middle and hoped that it was the right one. He stepped up to the old man while everyone was focused on him, not saying a thing. He pulled him upwards by his robe's collar, and the man was now dangling in front of him with fear in his eyes. "And no, senior, show mercy," the man pleaded as he thought he was a goner now, but instead of killing him, Matt placed his hand against the man's body. He was aiming for the Danshan. Lightning chi crackled as he released a blast and destroyed the man's source of cultivation, rendering him a regular mortal in the process. He thought that this was the best thing he could do, as the man would probably have a miserable life ahead of himself now. Some might say that he was too lenient, but he really didn't have that killer mentality that some other cultivators had, at least not yet. Crippled the cultivation of Foundation establishment early stage target, earned 2000 spirit points.